Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for joining us tonight to talk about the American Rescue Plan Act, President Biden's pandemic stimulus program. We want to thank our federal government for this support to cities across the country and also counties. I hope you and your families are staying healthy and safe, and I hope you have taken the opportunity to get vaccinated. I've gotten vaccinated and many of our team has gotten vaccinated. We've opened back up City Hall. And so we're so very, very excited to get things back to some semblance of normal. The agenda for tonight, of course, is going to be me, Mayor Lovely Warren, doing some opening remarks. I'm going to turn it over to our budget director, Chris Wagner, who's going to talk about the American Rescue Plan and give a quick overview. And then we're going to turn it over and engage some of our department heads to talk about some of the projects and community input sessions that they have had with their city departments, and talk about some possible use of the funds. And this is going to be interactive. So if you have any questions, you can put that in a chat, or you have any suggestions, you can do that as well. And we're also going to be taking some polls during the hour as well. We plan to go from 7 o'clock to 8 p.m. We may end early if things go progress quickly, but we wanted to make sure that we give people an opportunity to be heard and to just hear about the American Rescue Plan funds and what are some of the ideas that we have come to the city for the use of these funds. Additionally, we also have a poll that or input session poll that's on the city's website. Please go to www.cityofrochester.gov/ARPA, and you'll be able to take that questionnaire. And we want to hear directly from you, our residents, to figure out how to best use these funds. I have been, and I assure you that as we start to move forward, we're going to take everyone's thoughts into consideration. These dollars are one-time infusion dollars. Of course, they can be used to supplement revenue losses that we experienced during the pandemic year. And so we are going to, of course, use some of those dollars for that. But we also want to make sure that we do projects that are transformational and long-lasting, because these are not reoccurring dollars. So you don't want to put a lot of dollars into programs and other things like that, because it can be very challenging to continue with that. As I said earlier, I'm here tonight with our budget director and members of our senior management team. We want to get your ideas on the best way that we can use these ARPA funds to make historic investments in Rochester. We are finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel of the pandemic. For many of us, life is starting to get back to normal, and I'm looking forward to regaining the momentum that we had almost 8 years of successfully creating more jobs, safer, more vibrant neighborhoods, and better educational opportunities. Before the pandemic, Rochester was on a trajectory toward new levels of growth. And to be completely clear, we are continuing that because we kept working during the pandemic. We were able to create 3,800 new units of renovated homes and affordable housing that nearly helped 9,000 residents. We were able to work collectively together pre-pandemic to bring our unemployment to its lowest point in 10 years, our crime rate to its lowest point in 30 years, and addressing the needs of our children. And, during the pandemic, we were able to convert our centers into learning labs and really work collectively together with our libraries and other entities across the community to make sure that we were responding to the needs of our many residents. And so we want to continue to do that. And that's why a major goal of the ARPA funds is to help lift up our entire community, and not just through the recovery. We want to use these funds to help advance the goals of our equity and recovery agenda to confront the historic racism and structural inequality that has been a part of our city since its founding. Our allocation of the American Rescue Plan totals $202 million. We will not receive all those dollars at once. It is phased in, and I know that Chris will explain more about that. And there are restrictions and guidelines on how we can use these funds. And you will learn from and hear from our senior management team who have enough ideas for how these dollars could be allocated. So now it's time to make some important decisions on how to invest this money. And then we, of course, after we put out the plan and get some input from each of all of you that are part of this session, we will then submit this information to City Council, and City Council will, of course, have their input sessions as well. So we're glad that you are here tonight to help us shape the historic opportunity to recover from this pandemic. And your input tonight will help us turn the opportunities that we have into realities. Now I'd like to introduce, of course, our great budget director who led us through some tumultuous times. You know, last year, if you told me that we would be here where we are today, you know, we both probably would have been blown over with a feather, because it was touch and go there for a long time. And we're so thankful for our entire budget team, our entire finance team, for their hard work, because they've done an extraordinary job of helping Rochester continue to be a leading force when it comes down to financial management and making sure that our budgets are ones that our community and our citizens can be proud of. And so it is led by a great budget director, Chris Wagner, who has been with the city for a number of years. And we appreciate him and his team for their service and for helping us get through those challenging times. And Chris is going to explain all about the ARPA funds, what they can be used from, and then he'll be conducting conducting the review tonight with the rest of the senior management team. And then I'll come back in and give some closing remarks at the end. So please welcome Chris Wagner.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for those kind words. And yes, what a difference a year makes, right?
Yes.
As we go through this discussion tonight, first of all, thank you all for being here. As we go through this discussion tonight, I ask that you please submit any questions you may have through the chat function, and we'll get to those as we go through the evening. In terms of the American Rescue Plan, it's a $1.9 trillion plan, which includes about $360 billion in direct financial relief for state and local governments, including $65 billion for America's cities, villages, and towns, as well as $65 billion for counties. Rochester, as the mayor mentioned, will receive $202 million. The city school district will receive $197 million, and Monroe County will receive $144 million directly. This will be a one-time stimulus paid in 2 installments, which must be obligated by December 31st, 2024, and spent completely by December 31st, 2026. The American Rescue Plan recognizes the widespread impact of COVID on both public health and the economy, and that the pandemic disproportionately impacts low-income communities and people of color. Interim guidance was released by the Treasury Department just a few weeks ago. We expect to learn more in the coming weeks about eligible uses of these funds. But so far, we know we can use these funds to support the public health response to COVID-19, address negative economic impacts to households, businesses, nonprofits, and impacted industries, replace lost public sector revenue used to provide vital public services, and make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. The city is participating with several peer cities through the Bloomberg Budgeting for Equity and Recovery Initiative and attending technical assistance webinars offered by Treasury, the National League of Cities, and the New York Conference of Mayors. The National League of Cities actually established an eligible use framework to apply to projects when considering possible investments. That framework is used to identify harmful effects of COVID-19 that the activity proposed would address, access the causal or compounding connection to COVID-19, assess for disproportionate impact on distressed sectors or populations, and determine how to prove the expense produces an expected outcome. It allows for additional flexibility for the hardest hit communities and families to address health disparities, invest in housing, address economic or educational disparities, and promote healthy childhood environments. There is a presumption of eligibility if the project takes place inside qualified census tracts and can be used for things like direct cash and loan interventions, assistance to businesses and nonprofits, impacted industries and workers, housing and community development, to address homelessness, and to address childcare and education as well. Ineligible uses of the funds include using funds to fund pensions, for infrastructure investments not directly addressed in the American Rescue Plan. You can't replenish rainy day funds, financial reserves, or pay outstanding debt with these funds, or use it for any federal matching requirements that the city may have. So that's a brief overview of, again, eligible and ineligible uses. And that kind of brings us to our first poll questions that we would like your input on here. So we have 3 poll questions that you should see in your pop-up window. You may need to scroll down to see the third question if you can't see all 3 questions. But we'd like your input now on I'll read the questions out loud. Question 1 is the COVID-19 crisis negatively affecting your family financially? Possible answers are not at all, very little, somewhat, or severely. Question 2 is the COVID-19 crisis negatively affecting your children's education? And question 3 is the COVID-19 crisis negatively affecting your family's physical, mental, or emotional health and well-being? Again, please answer these questions, and the possible responses are not at all, very little, somewhat, or severely. Again, the first question is the crisis negatively affecting your family financially? The second question is it negatively affecting your children's education? The third question is it negatively affecting your family's physical, mental, or emotional health and well-being? And we'll give that just another second to wrap up here. And I'll ask Emily if she could close that out and post the results. Okay, so I appreciate your responses. So it looks like about 14% said that it's not affecting them financially negatively. Another 14% said very little. 57% said somewhat, and then 14% said severely. And then in terms of education, but 36% said not at all, 7% said very little, and then 58% combined said somewhat or severely. And then for the third question, scroll myself here. Did it negatively affect your family's physical, mental, or emotional health and well-being? 100% people said either somewhat or severely. So that's really, really significant. So thank you very much for your participation in the poll questions. And I'd like to remind you as we go through the evening here to submit your questions, any questions that you have through the chat. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our Commissioner of Recreation and Human Services, Danielle Lyman-Torres, and our Director of the Libraries, Patty Attaro, to discuss some of the potential uses of these funds related to their departments. Danielle and Patty.
Thanks, Chris. I think Danielle will go first.
I will. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mayor. As you can see, this first slide is really talking about public health response and equity-focused services. And when looking at COVID-19 in particular for both testing and vaccine clinics, as listed here, there have been a number of initiatives to ensure equity and access to testing and vaccines. And we do expect those efforts to be ongoing and to need to be ongoing. We also do anticipate a continued need for ongoing education regarding COVID, testing, and vaccine. In regards to food security, we have been serving grab-and-go meals at our centers for children and families in partnership with FoodLink and RCSD. To date, we have distributed nearly 3 million meals. We have also supported more than 100 food box distributions in the city, and we see that the food access issues continue to expand beyond what we were seeing prior to the pandemic. We would be looking to continue access to food at our centers beyond the current federal and state funding, which does expire. In regards to violence prevention, we recently announced the development of the Office of Neighborhood Safety. This office will be focused on ramping up community-based programs, working on violence prevention. There will be a need to do capacity building to create a robust network of programs and program service providers in the community. For mental health services, we have launched the Person in Crisis team and a plan to enhance our wraparound community supports. There is a need for additional funds to continue to reform crisis intervention services. We have also been considering the impact of the human-animal bond and thinking about how to continue to connect pets to people in a mental health support model. As it pertains to job training and workforce development, there's a need to develop a transformative model of workforce development and job training, focusing on new Americans, individuals re-entering the community following incarceration, or individuals who are participating in mental health or court diversion programs. So that rounds out the initiatives, or some of the initiatives that are potential initiatives put forth in the Department of Recreation and Human Services. At this time, I'll turn it over to Library Director Patty Utaro.
Thanks, Danielle. In 2018, the library completed a branch facilities plan that identified several opportunities for capital improvement. Two of those opportunities are underway right now. Complete interior renovation of the Lincoln branch at Joseph and Avenue D, and an expanded building at the Maplewood location on Dewey Avenue. Construction at Lincoln is scheduled for later this year, and the Maplewood initial design is included in the fiscal year 22 capital improvement plan. Allocating some of these new funds to the Maplewood project would allow that to move more quickly. Input gathered from community members and library users at Maplewood show a desire for a multi-purpose facility that includes expanded library services such as more books, more computers, and more programs, as well as a community meeting space, a continuing education component that includes classes and learning opportunities for all ages, and potentially satellite offices for city and county services. We've also identified an opportunity to build a new library in the Northeast Quadrant, possibly along the Portland Avenue corridor. Currently, the Northeast Quadrant is home to only one library, the Lincoln branch, which has created a large unserved area stretching from Joseph Avenue east beyond Portland. A new library at Portland and Clifford, for example, would be in between Lincoln and Sully on Webster Avenue and would serve a large residential area. A new library location could include all of the things I mentioned for Maplewood, or even something which would be a new approach for Rochester, which has worked well in other cities, which is blending housing with a public library street level anchor. A recent study produced by the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago showed some compelling data supporting capital investment in libraries. The report reads in part, "We find that capital investment sharply increases library visits by more than 21%, children's checkouts of items by 21%, and children's attendance at library events by 18%. These increases in usage persist for at least 10 years after capital investment. And after such investment, children's reading test scores improved. The authors observed persistent improvement in reading test scores in the years after library capital spending." This information is from the Returns to Public Library Investment by Gregory Gilpin, Ezra Karger, and Peter Nenka. And I can make the link to that report available to anyone who would like it. There's much research showing that access to books and making reading a daily activity in the home leads to later success in school and in work. And access to public libraries and all they offer is integral to that success. I know there are a couple of other things on this slide, including pandemic-related safety measures at city facilities and improved online access to city services. And I think, Chris, you were going to address that.
Yes, thank you, Patty and Danielle. I'm going to address the last bullet here in terms of online access to city services, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Jones to speak to the pandemic-related safety measures at city facilities. So with respect to improved online access to city services, some of the potential uses of this would include upgrades to the city's website, as well as potentially additional software to facilitate better access for citizens. Commissioner Jones, do you want to speak to the pandemic-related safety measures at city facilities?
As we're all aware, this past 16 months have been quite a challenge for our city, especially the facilities at the city of Rochester. We've made great strides in correcting our building automation systems, our HVAC systems, changing out our filters, and making sure that we had the appropriate access control and temperature control in place. These are some of the measures that we undertook to make sure that we met all of the state and county guidelines in regards to our social distancing and access to our facilities.
Great, thanks, Commissioner Jones. And now we're going to move into our next poll question. So the question is, how important is it that resources be focused on immediate needs for workers, families, and small businesses? And examples of those things might be food security, financial counseling, job training, home buyer and property repair grants. So again, the answers are either very important, somewhat important, less important, or not important at all. How important is it that resources be focused on immediate needs for workers, families, and small businesses? I'll give that another minute to wrap up here, and then I'll ask Emily to close it out and post the results. Great. So 71% of you said it was very important that these resources be used to focus on immediate needs. 21% said somewhat important, and 7% said less important. So that's great information. Thank you for taking that poll. And now, before we move on to Commissioner Kirkmeyer, I'm just going to pause here and see if we have any questions. Patty or Sarah?
Thank you, Chris. We're getting some comments or ideas for the spending of the funding and also some questions. So first, one comment was if the newly signed New York State $15 internet access bill doesn't solve the internet access problem for those in need, the city should consider supplementing with a municipal wireless internet service provider. So that's one suggestion we've got from participants today. And a couple questions. One is about the R centers and the meals that are provided at those centers. We're wondering how long the city will continue to provide those handout meals at the R centers.
So the grab and go meals will continue to be offered throughout September to the end of September of this year. But we will continue past them with our 3 meals that we offer during the normal course of summer, and then during the school year where we offer a hot meal every single day. But for the grab and go meals that we have been distributing, those do expire, that the waiver to do that expires on September 30th.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. And we've got a couple questions about libraries. One is someone is wondering whether library hours are back to normal pre-COVID schedules. And someone also asked about the usage of the libraries at Joseph and Avenue G, whether those are heavier or not so heavy use libraries.
All of our libraries reopened for normal pre-pandemic hours beginning Tuesday this week, except for Monroe. We have a staffing issue there right now, but we expect Monroe will be open to their normal hours by the end of next week. All of the libraries have been open in some form or another, whether for curbside pickup or for in-person service since last August, with a brief respite over the December holidays. And we are starting to see people come back. Initially, we were seeing pretty slow business, but our results for circulation for April were well over 100%, well over 100% increase over last year. So the usage is picking up again. The question regarding the Lincoln branch, Lincoln is we have 10 branch libraries, and Lincoln hovers between number 3 and number 4 for number of people who visit and activity that happens there. We are very cognizant of safety issues in the neighborhood. RPD makes regular stops just to check in with staff. We have a security guard on site for all of the hours that the library is open. And some of the security issues that have been brought forth regarding the interior of the Lincoln branch are being addressed with the construction. So, for example, the restrooms right now are separate from the main part of the library, which has caused some issues in the past, but that will be changed. And the interior space will be much more open and redone with security with security in mind.
Great, thank you, Patty. I'd now like to turn it over to Commissioner of Neighborhood and Business Development, Gary Kirkmeyer, to talk about some of the ideas for uses of funds related to his department. Gary?
Thanks, Chris, and good evening, everyone. In the addressing negative economic impact category, we begin with business assistance. Within that business assistance title, we've got 4 proposed programs. The first one is business revitalization grants. These grants are targeted to assist small startup businesses and incentivize the filling in of vacant retail spaces on our commercial corridors. The program would also be able to help existing businesses expand. Another new initiative would be addressing the food desert problem by incentivizing development of grocery stores in areas of need. Then we have 2 programs that we are proposing to continue. The first one is the continuation of our senior meals program. In this program, we partnered with 30 restaurants to deliver more than 42,000 free meals to our seniors during the pandemic. We've had a lot of public outcry for this to continue, and people found it very, very favorable. Another one of our business programs during the pandemic was our BERG grant, our Business Emergency Retention Grant. This program provided up to $8,000 to more than 550 businesses during the pandemic, assisting them with things like rent, payroll, insurance, utilities, and inventory. Shifting over to affordable housing, funds could be used to increase the supply of quality affordable units for our lower income residents, those at or below 30% of the area median income. We want to propose to use some of the funds as seed money for our expected Housing First Trust Fund. We're currently in the process of having a consultant engage the community and construct a proposal of how we might best use a housing trust fund here. Housing trust funds on average can usually be used to address things like various tenant stabilization activities or building capacity for a tenant opportunity to purchase program. Another affordable housing initiative would be in the form of energy grants. This program would incentivize energy efficiency improvements that would lower utility costs for our lower income residents. And it would be available to both owner occupants and landlords as well, as long as the tenant is paying utilities in that unit. Under the first time home buyer incentives, we'd want to support the Mayor's Buy the Block program. This initiative is targeted to provide new construction owner occupancy opportunities to our residents at or below 60% of the area median income. This effort would be combined with the recent expansion of our Choice Tax Abatement Program to further reduce the monthly housing expenses for the participants for the initial 9 years of home ownership. Shifting over to the lead hazard remediation, I know Commissioner Jones is going to talk extensively about that in the right-of-way. This proposal would be related to a property owner's side of that equation, so from the curb to the main building. City of Rochester has had a nationally recognized rental inspection program along with our lead-based paint poisoning prevention ordinance. And the combination of those two has led to a reduction of more than 98% of lead poisoned children in our city since 1998. This effort would support that and have a compounding impact on those gains to date. The next category is property rehab grants. Each year, we're able to assist in the form of a rehab grant around 350 owner occupants throughout our city. These grants provide assistance to help eliminate housing hazards for residents, allow our seniors to age in place, and eliminate blight for the neighborhood. Additional resources here would allow us to reach more residents in need. The next category is roofing grants. The replacement of a roof is one of the largest expenditures a homeowner faces. Each year, the city facilitates our roofing grant application process via lottery because we don't have enough resources to meet the expressed need. Providing additional resources to this program would significantly enhance our ability to meet the needs of our residents. And then the last bullet up here is the financial counseling services. The Rochester Financial Empowerment Centers support community members in a variety of ways to improve their financial health and as they work towards their individual goals. Participants are also connected to local resources for additional supports like life coaching, employment coaching, and cash support. The Rochester Financial Empowerment Centers have served more than 1,000 community members to date, resulting in an increase in total client savings by more than $840,000, decreasing total client debt by more than $605,000, and average increase of 24 points in credit score for clients. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you, Commissioner Kirkmeyer. Again, I encourage people as we're going through here to ask any questions you have or comments through the chat. But we're going to go to our next poll question now. And this will be our last poll question. How important is it that the resources be focused on longer-term investments that encourage job creation and economic development? And examples can be grocery store incentives, improvements to tourist attractions, and large infrastructure projects. Again, the options for response are very important, somewhat important, less important, or not important. And the question again, I'll read it again. How important is it that ARPA resources be focused on longer-term investments that encourage job creation and economic development? Please choose your answer there, and I'll ask Emily to wrap it up and post the results. Okay, so about 56% of you said that it was very important to focus on longer-term investments. 19% said somewhat important, 13% said less important, and 13% said not important. So thank you very much for your feedback on that. And I'm going to ask Sarah if we have any more questions or comments at this time.
Thanks, Chris. We do have another comment and a couple questions. First, the comment: young adults with few skills need to perceive value in pursuing well-paying skilled trades. Any labor summit needs to involve more stakeholders than just trade unions to shape the perceptions and create a larger pool of skilled tradespeople. School programs, apprenticeships, and bringing back skilled teachers to teach skilled trades are costs that we don't normally have in our budgets. So that's a suggestion for our ARP spending. And then a couple questions. One is, how will the city consider racial equity when providing support for small businesses, since many businesses led by people of color historically haven't had access to resources and support? So that's for Mayor or Commissioner Kirkmeyer.
I'm going to start off. One of the things that we have definitely been, as you all know, the Race Commission issued a report. The commission was started by myself and the county executive, and they gave a number of different suggestions. One of them is really for us to help with people being certified as MWBEs, and we are looking at that now. We also announced today that our goals, that we have exceeded our MWBE goals for the last year. Increasing actually our spend with MWBEs by over 300%. And we're thankful for that because we intentionally made opportunities available for women and people of color businesses. Our Office of Community Wealth Building, as well as the Office of Neighborhood and Business Development, has made a conscious effort to continue to support businesses throughout the pandemic. And whether there were women or businesses of color, we really supported them, especially those service businesses, meaning our beauty shops and barber salons that had many challenges because they had to shut down for many, many months. And so we will continue to support these efforts through the funding that we provide in this upcoming budget. If City Council passes it, $1 million with the Race Commission. We are also, this year, we had a budget equity tool that each department had to look at and to really do a self-examination of their support for employees of color and women. And additionally, we look to partner with many of our community organizations through the Nexus I-90 program or the partnership with Redco and others to make sure that dollars are being adequately provided to businesses of color. When we think about what the Kiva Rochester program was able to do, where we have many of the borrowers being able to access those funds through Kiva Rochester. Many of them were women, majority people of color businesses.
Thank you very much.
If you have anything to add to that.
It's kind of hard to add to that, Mayor, but I'll just add specific to the programs that we reference. Yes, we will be giving a preference to women and minority-owned businesses in the business revitalization grant effort in alignment with the Race Commission report.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioner Kirkmeyer. Another question is this: what is the plan for coordination with the county and with the city school district so there's no duplication of effort for some of the targeted approaches that cross over those various entities?
The pandemic has given us a great opportunity, and one program that we partner with the county on, and another we partner with not only the city school district, but also with our community partners. Commissioner Danielle Lyman Torres spoke about the food program that was with Food Link, that was also with the city school district. Open Up Our Centers was a partnership with the city school district, really to provide learning labs within our centers during the pandemic. And we will continue those partnerships as we move forward. One of the major initiatives that the city was able to do with the county, of course, is around housing. Many people faced eviction and some housing challenges. We work in partnership with the County of Monroe to provide not only resources to landlords, but also to tenants to stem or to stop the eviction process for them. And we will continue to work collectively together to ensure that both we're working in partnership with all of our entities and our private organizations and not-for-profit organizations and other governmental entities to assist with the needs of our residents. And I think that this pandemic has shown through partnering on providing testing, to providing vaccines, to providing support for housing, as well as businesses, that we can all work collectively. When we all work collectively together, it's the best for our residents, and we continue to lift as we climb by linking arms and working together for each and every one of you. I don't know if there's anything that you have to add, Commissioner Kirkmeyer, or about the partnership with the county.
No, Mayor, I think you covered it pretty well. Just to reiterate the rent arrears program, that's a collective $44 million effort that we're jointly partnering with the county on, and we're serving people at a very high level. And we were able to get that program up and running in March, which was pretty remarkable given the time constraints.
And Commissioner, just really quickly, we had a panelist that talked about she's a small landlord, and she's having trouble getting her tenants to agree to sign to the paperwork for evictions. Can you explain to her the process, or see if there's some way that we can assist her in getting the funds that she needs? Because we do recognize one of the things when we first started the program, the tenants were the only ones that was allowed to apply for rent relief. And we know that tenants had challenges with that. Landlords requested that they be allowed to apply as well on behalf of their tenants, and the tenant, of course, had to agree. But that was one of the things that came out in the second round of this, and we're thankful that our landlords are able to apply and work with their tenants to be able to get those resources. So Commissioner Kirkmeyer, can you talk about the tenant relief program?
Yes, absolutely, Mayor. So yes, we did broaden the ability for landlords to be able to be the applicant. Unfortunately, this area is the biggest pain point right now. The program does and will be dependent on both parties participating. I think the first thing you have to remember is this is funding that was targeted for relief for tenants. Although it does serve directly landlords. And we understand the dynamics and the pain that's being experienced by some where there's not full participation. We certainly would be willing to intercede where we can to try to convince tenants to do the right thing. At the end of the day here, all of this information is documented. And so if a tenant's participating and the landlord is not, that information is going to make its way through the adjudication process and vice versa. So we're hoping at some point that where the rubber meets the road is the tenants are going to be forced to get assistance that they're entitled to, and that assistance goes directly to the landlord.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Gary. I would now like to introduce Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Services, Norm Jones, to talk about infrastructure investments. Commissioner
Thank
Jones.
you. Thank you, Director Wagner. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, colleagues. And thank you, citizens, for joining us. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, good. I get very excited about infrastructure. I'm probably one of the few people in this area that gets excited about what's underneath the ground and what's behind the walls. They are so important to the development and the vitality of our city. The Blue Cross Arena at the War Memorial has undergone many renovations in the past year in regards to interior changes, lighting, and AV upgrades. That being said, we are also considering in the design process for a Riverside expansion to include a new restaurant and box seating within the War Memorial. The expansion will include an enlarged concession areas and a more modern teen space to encourage more activities at the arena. Second, we have the Riverside Convention Center. This convention center was built in 1985. It's over 36 years old. It needs extensive renovations. And during this pandemic, it was not able to host any events. It did serve as a role as a testing site for a testing and a vaccination site, but it has the opportunity now to expand on to the actual Riverside, to cantilever over to create more event space. The expansion will also allow us to make some repairs on the actual river wall that has failed, and also engage the river as part of our Rock the Riverway initiative to make sure that we are utilizing the river as an economic driver. At the 5, this is a creation of a 1.5 acre site for outdoor entertainment and public space in the heart of our downtown to encourage social gathering while promoting economic development and vibrancy. Our lead water service replacement program. Oh, I skipped a major one, pardon me. The Inner Loop improvement. Inner Loop North transformation, reimagine the remaining 1.6 miles of the Inner Loop Expressway to reconnect neighborhoods in downtown, promote racial equity through support for new housing and small businesses and open space, restore the historic street grid and historic parks, and enhance the multimodal transportation options through improved bicycle, pedestrian facilities, and most needed trail connections. Street improvements. We need to invest in street infrastructures to reimagine critical corridors, placing a high priority on all users, including pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit. Opportunities potentially include Dewey Avenue, North Clinton Avenue, West Main Street, South Plymouth Avenue, Genesee Street, and many more. Many of these street improvement projects are in line or being coordinated with some of the major developments that are going on. For example, what's going on at Bull's Head that was recently announced as a major development initiative. Lead water service replacement. This is the opportunity for us to accelerate the total replacement of all the lead water services citywide to eliminate any potential risk to public health and to ensure safe, clean drinking water for the generations to come. Our broadband infrastructure, the ARPA offers broadband-related dollars to reduce consumer prices, build out network and infrastructure, and fund digital skills programming. The broadband build-out will create digital equity by bridging the digital divide to close the gap between those who can access and use the internet-based services and those who cannot. This was most recently highlighted when many children had to be educated from home. This will provide them with opportunities to be on an equal footing with their counterparts in areas that do have access to broadband. Establish or improve our broadband service to the underserved or underprivileged populations through partnerships with all levels of government, local organizations, and service providers. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. So with that, Sarah, do we have any more questions or comments?
I have one question here for Commissioner Jones. Do we have any shovel-ready projects, housing projects or other infrastructure projects that could start immediately?
Absolutely. On the lead service replacement, we have a number of opportunities in which we can really hit the ground running and replace up to 1,000 lead services as early as the fall this year. We have numerous street projects that are in the planning stage that can be accelerated to move forward. We can move the actual Interloop North planning initiative into the design function in a very expedient way. We're ready to move and make things happen in a very short time frame, and we can continue on certain things, especially at the core of our downtown, at the Rochester Riverside Convention Center, at the Blue Cross Arena, and and we did not mention the actual Rundell Terrace and the work that's being done there. So there's a number of shovel-ready opportunities that have availed themselves as long as the funding is provided to us.
Great, thanks very much, Commissioner. And since we have no more comments or questions, we'll be coming to the end of our program tonight. I want to thank you all for joining us and for your questions and comments. Also want to thank the commissioners for attending, obviously the mayor as well, and my staff, Sarah, Emily, and Christina, for their work tonight. With that, I'll turn it back over to Mayor Warren.
Thank you, Chris. And again, thank you to all of the citizens who participated and asked questions and participated in all of the surveys. We will be having a teletown hall in the near future, as well as we would ask everyone to please go online and fill out the online survey. It's again, www.cityofrochester.gov/ARPA. Telephone town hall is tentatively June 17th at 7 p.m. That's tentatively June 17th at 7 p.m. Thank you to all of our commissioners and directors for being a part of this session tonight and sharing some of the ideas that that our citizens have come up with. And I believe that we are going to do some transformative projects here, and it's going to be put to good use for all of our citizens and for generations to come. When I think about our young people and some of the play apparatuses and other things that can be done with these dollars, I think it's going to go a long way to assist in providing them the outdoor play, as well as possibly the broadband infrastructure that they need to get work done as it pertains to schooling. So again, everyone, please have a great night. Please stay safe. If you have not been vaccinated, please get vaccinated. We have a lot of exciting activities coming up this summer, and we want everybody to be able to participate, to be able to go to baseball games and concerts and all of that. As you know, in festivals, that's what we do well in Rochester. And so thank you so very, very much for attending tonight. And please have a good evening and a great rest of your week.